introduction and then I'll hand it over.
Okay.
So just give it another minute here. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you're here. Okay. All right. Just give it a couple more seconds here and then we'll get going. All right. Okay. Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Samantha Hooker. I'll be the moderator for today's Eval Cafe. You may have joined us in the past. If you haven't, this is your first one. The cafe is a longstanding speaker series. It's hosted by the Evaluation Center at Western Michigan University, and we're located in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The goal of Eval Cafe is to encourage a deeper dive into all things evaluation. In a few minutes, I'll add some links to the chat. The first is if you'd like to join our Eval Cafe mailing list, we'll just send out invites to the presentations we have coming up. The second allows you to view the schedule so you can see the rest of our 2025 fall schedule and also recordings to the ones that we've hosted already this year. Before we begin, we do take a moment to acknowledge the history of the land we're on. Western Michigan University is located on the ancestral lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, which was historically occupied by the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, and we honor their stewardship and connection to this land. Today, we're very excited to be joined by Koren Dennison, Managing Evaluation and Communications Specialist at Ubuntu Research and Evaluation, Carolina Sarmiento, Associate Professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Aurealia-ShaVaun Johnson, Employment Service Coordinator and Instructor at the YWCA Madison. If you have any questions during your presentation, feel free to enter them in the chat box. I'll keep an eye on that and I can ask them to the presenters as we go along. You can also use the reaction button if you'd like to raise your hand, and then we can call on you at question breaks. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm so happy to be here with you all on this wonderful Wednesday. I'm excited for the opportunity to present on my and my partner's work. Just a quick little overview of what you all can expect to learn and engage in over this next hour with us. We'll explore evaluation as a tool for liberation. We talk about evaluation within organizations a lot, but we want to talk today a little bit about what evaluation looks like within communities and how it invites us to be collectively responsible to foster equitable solutions. We'll talk about everyday evaluative skills, how that strengthens relationships, how it addresses community needs in a diverse and robust kind of way, and then how we leveraged evaluation specifically to meet the needs of our community participants in a particular program, but we'll get there. So I'll introduce you to a couple storytelling methodologies, photo voice and journey mapping. These art-based methodologies center community voices and lived experiences, and the approach positions storytelling and storytellers as powerful conduits towards solutions. We have a case study featuring our Ubuntu-YWCA and UW-Madison partnership, all of which are represented here through this space. And how we leverage these evaluative storytelling methodologies to convert some really powerful data into narrative to help us better understand one of our programs that we offered. Can we together take a deep breath? It is for me, but I'm going to share this moment with you all. We're going to just humanize it. We're going to take a deep breath in, hold it, exhale slowly. One more, one more. Thank you all. I just wanted to bring myself more close to the space and be a little less shaky. And if anybody else needed that, thank you for sharing the moment with me. So, who is Ubuntu? Right? Let's kick off there. Ubuntu Research and Evaluation is an Afrofuturist strategic learning organization powered by a collective of unapologetic Black women, femmes, and non binary people working as undisciplinary strategists. When I say undisciplinary strategists, we know evaluation is a discipline, we know law is a discipline, right? But the way that Ubuntu approaches evaluation is that other flavors of lived experience can inform the richness of your approach to evaluation, and we actively amplify the diverse perspectives before you come to become an evaluator, and that is what we kind of emphasize in that way. We're committed to resisting anti-blackness, which is a global idea, and we are committed to protecting the intellectual and political property of Black folks within our space. And so we do this through offering facilitation or organizational strategy, capacity building, and the actual services of evaluation. There's other ways that you can kind of get in community with us, but essentially we prioritize the aliveness of the most marginalized audiences. And we believe that folks who are closest to the problem have the keys to their solutions. And we do that in our evaluation consultation work. Um, in a moment, we will move to our check-ins, and I would like for you all to start dropping your names, your organization, and then I'll have a check-in question that I also want you to answer in the chat. But as you start thinking of that, I'll just go quickly over our agenda for our time. So how does Ubuntu do evaluation? What is the role of dignity in Afrofuturism in evaluation? We're going to talk about storytelling evaluation. I'm going to explain journey mapping and photo voice, and then we'll go into our real world example, close the loop on all of those points of how we're here to learn about it, and then we'll close. So just to kick off introductions, I am Koren. I am a managing evaluation strategist at Ubuntu, and I will pass it to my partners to introduce themselves as well. And as we're introducing ourselves, please start introducing yourself in the chat. Name, organization, maybe a fun fact, and then what comes to mind when you hear everyday evaluator or emergent evaluator. So drop those in the chat, and I'll pass it to Aurelia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Aurelia. I am the program coordinator and instructor as well as case manager for the Intro to Computer Skills class that you'll learn about and all of the employment training programs at the YWCA Madison.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carolina Sarmiento. I know Samantha mentioned I'm an associate professor here at the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I see that some folks are starting to introduce themselves in the chat, which is great. And just a friendly reminder that we have a great group here. Y'all are like evaluators from all different places and locations, but we would love to hear what you think about when you hear the word everyday evaluator and emergent evaluator. So we can share some of those ideas. And while you all put those in the chat, I point to the picture or the photograph that we have on the slide right now, and you can think about what the youth in the picture might have to say about funding for their schools or arts funding or extracurricular activities or their after-school programs, questions about safety. And so these are some of the ways that we try and ground the questions that Koren was mentioning are the focus of some of Ubuntu's work. So let me see, are folks answering? So somebody, for example, said everyday evaluator may be someone who is thinking about evaluation every day. That's good. Emergent evaluator may be someone who is thinking of more exploratory evaluation. That's a good one. Let's see if I can see everyday evaluator, someone, Sarah saying this, Sarah Roth, someone who evaluates for work. And everyday evaluator assists with engagement, learning, and problem solving, and lives in the space that they work in. And here's one last one, which is from Linnea. Hi, Linnea. Emergent evaluator are those state university, are those who are using new tactics and strategies to assess emergent issues. Great. All right. Well, we all introduced ourselves, so we can go to the next slide, I think. So here we all are. I feel like this team is amazing. I'm from the university, but I really, I'm like a learner in this team. I think Ubuntu has really like shaped, but also taught and is, yeah, they're like our teachers in this whole piece. So I feel like we are learning to really center the work that they've been doing, how they've been centering questions around anti-Blackness, but also abolitionist frameworks. So we look forward to sharing some of this information with you all.
So I wanted to let you know a little bit about what the project itself is. The YWCA Madison's Intro to Computer Skills course is a 6-week program focused on healing traumas experienced from incarceration through restorative circles. The Intro to Computer Skills class is structured to get participants introduced to technical skills and applications that will support them in furthering their education in general, specifically for employment as well as navigating the ever more technological world that we live in, from making doctor's appointments and different things like that. We also do support them to move into the tech field because we know that the tech and IT field is very white male dominant. We also support them in searching for housing and other essential resources that reduce the rates of recidivism. And we know that this evaluation is important because the people that this program is specifically for have faced so much, they are already marginalized, and they face so much more marginalization and trauma through the system, through incarceration, through over policing. And we know that when they are able to speak for themselves and tell their story to us, that's how we can improve. That's how we can build community. That's how we can foster their humanity and really focus on that. And I'm going to pass it back to my friend Koren.
Thank you. So now that we've learned a little bit about the program and a little bit about the context, evaluation, right? So I'm imagining a lot of you all in this room are evaluators and are, pretty well versed in the purpose of evaluation. But for those of us who aren't, the way I like to kind of layman term explain it is when you think of like an audit, but not for numbers. Think of an audit, but how you do what you say you do, right? And so evaluation is traditionally designed to determine the value, the merit, the utility, the function of an offering, of a program, of an idea, right? Are you doing what you say you do? How well are you doing it? It is we all interpersonally know that intent and impact are different things, right? Evaluation it allows us on a larger scale to note and understand the differences between those intent and impact and figure out what the bridge between those things are and inform where investments are currently going. Do they make sense, and how can they be divvied out, right? That sounds great. We need that. We absolutely need that. But then when we think about context and we recognize that white supremacy is kind of the soil that all of our business structure in the in the U.S. context is built under, we have to be privy and minimally mindful of how some of these symptoms might show up through our inherent conditioning under anti-Black circumstances, right? And so Tima Okun identified these particular and specific characteristics of circumstances of symptoms of white supremacy showing up. So perfectionism, sense of urgency, defensiveness, power hoarding, individualism, objectivity, the only one right way, right? And so when we understand who holds power in our context, when we understand that evaluation is leveraged to make fiscal and financial decisions of where the money will go, and we know that the money is already unevenly and inequitably distributed, right? If we are not to approach evaluation intentionally, we run the risk of perpetuating some of the harms that already exist, right? And then we miss an opportunity to create a liberatory, equitable circumstance, even within the small specific project, right? We can't solve everything, but if one evaluation at a time, we're moving towards a healthier society, what more can you ask for? And so, how has evaluation already changed? Again, some evaluators are already in the room, and we know how the format of some of our work it already is. When you're the evaluator, you come in as an expert. You come in and you are relied upon, and your opinion is valued. You are the judge of certain things, right? In a transformative approach to evaluation, you shift from being the leader and the expert to being a convener, to being a facilitator, to being a partner to the work, right? And instead of the evaluator coming in and having this sense of professionalism and I know how and teaching top down, what does it mean for the expertise of those receiving the services, those lived experiences to be amplified as expertise, right? You're an expert at your own life. And if I am a program offerer, program manager, and I am coming to meet your needs, you best know what those needs are in your life than me. And if I'm the evaluator and I think that I come in and I know, I might miss the mark on serving you, right? These are some different kinds of evaluation. Drop in the chat if you feel so compelled which ones you have most experience with, or which kinds of evaluation you feel most familiar with. If not, if you don't have the lived experience, which ones seem most interesting to you? Share which might apply to the kind of work that you do if you are not a practitioner of evaluation. I would say that this particular project that we had would fall under empowerment. It will fall under developmental because it's a 5-year project that we've been doing it. And our evaluative arm has been on the project since its inception. Kato, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so I see in the chat that a lot of folks have had experience with like summative, some with participatory, developmental, there's a few, impact and outcome. And most folks are mentioning things that they've actually done. I'm not sure if folks are thinking about potential forms that they haven't, or models that they haven't applied that they feel like would have been useful. So like formative, that I don't think anybody's actually mentioned formative, for example. That's like, what's the need for a program? Or that's often done before implementation. Most accept economics, says Simone, for example, that like folks have experienced a lot of these, but not economic. Most do process and impact, but most are interested in empowerment and participatory, says Sarah Roth. So that maybe the ones that you're most interested in aren't necessarily the ones that you've participated most often, or maybe not the ones that you feel like are the most necessary or directly related to the work that you're doing, or that what your work actually needs.
Thank you. I'm sorry, the screen was doing a little something wonky there for a moment. It distracted me. Thank you, Kato. And I appreciate you all dropping those evaluations that you have lived experience with in the chat. So bear with me. I hope y'all tracking me. So I'm just like laying out our ingredients, right? We're baking here. I'm laying out all of our ingredients and we're mixing, right? We're in a mixing bowl. We're finding out how these ideas that we're talking about work together, right? And so Ubuntu, as an evaluation firm, we have a special sauce, right? Like we are not a traditional evaluation firm. And we approach our work a little differently. The way we engage in our work is a little differently, and it's mindful, and it is to combat anti-Black racist capitalism, right? Like it is on purpose putting that front and center, that we are going to answer this question at hand, but we're going to answer it in a way that creates sustainable long-term something, right? At least ways to think, at least a challenge of ways to show up, right? And so how do we do that? These are the primary ingredients now. I ain't saying you're going to be able to cook it at home, but these are the ingredients. So we talked a little about evaluation, right? We are an evaluation firm, but one of our first ingredients is dignity. What is dignity? So, our founder, Dr. Monique Liston, has defined dignity as the reciprocal self-worth shared between an individual and society. Every human being should understand themselves to be worthy because the people around them are worthy. So I want to focus on the word reciprocal for a quick moment, right? So dignity is something that we are all born with, like the air in our lungs. We are human, we are alive, we are dignified people, right? We wake up worthy and deserving of having our needs met, of being in community, of breathing our air and taking up space, right? Everybody wakes up worthy in that fashion. But what's particular about it is the reciprocal part, because it's shared between an individual and society. It's already ours, but if you go outside and somebody does not honor you, then are you having a dignified experience, right? It's reciprocal because I can feel jolly good in my outfit and in my hairstyle and what it is, and then I go outside and somebody calls me ugly, right? They wrong, but did they, you know what I mean? Was I feeling dignified during that interaction? And this is where I have the dignity, but I have to be in environments in which it is validated, amplified, uplifted, honored, right? So it's the trade, it's the exchange between an individual and their society, right? I want to just emphasize that. So we use dignity as our framework, right? We use frameworks all day long in evaluation, but we use a dignity-based framework and it allows us to understand the relationship between inequities and solutions better. Right. So I told you we value and prioritize the lived experience and the word of folks closest to the problem. Right. So if I am dignifying you, I'm not going to decide what the problem, what the solutions to your problems are in your life. I'm going to go ask you, and I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to put that in. Now it is data that is measurable, that is tangible. And then we get to act on that. And that whole solution design was in your words, and you are now experiencing a dignified experience. Because I can say, oh, I'm going to feed you. But if I don't ask you what your dietary concerns are, when you get that plate, will you be dignified? Right? And so these are the things that we're talking about, that we're thinking about all the time. We develop key concepts of dignity that manifest in our organizational lives that we identify, understand, and strategize our work through. So there's some elements of the selfhood understanding of dignity, but then there's some elements that are identifiable in the social elements of dignity that Ubuntu loves to talk about, and that is its own lecture, right? But this is kind of some of the sauce. So can I have a reader unmute to read the first section of this slide? Don't make me call y'all out now. Somebody be brave.
I can read it. Represent the Madison peeps. So the first paragraph, the first section.
Yes.
Okay. Futurist evaluation uses systematic processes that assess merit, worth, function, or significance by gathering, analyzing, and interpreting evidence while radically imagining all Black people dignified and flourishing in the future.
Ooh, thank you, Linnea. Right, so this doesn't sound too far off, right? But then we got to make sure we manually and intentionally and firmly insert the radical imagination of Black people dignified and flourishing in the future. And it's simple. It's kind of hard, right? When we live in our world under these particular circumstances, under this particular social conditioning, it is easy for that to be like not thought of, not front of brain. So bringing it to the front allows us to prioritize who has never been prioritized under this context before, right? So Afrofuturist that's the process that we use. But Afrofuturist evaluative thinking, because it's a mindset and it's a heart thing. You got to show up wanting to navigate the world or to heal the world in this way. It's critical thinking applied in the context of evaluation, motivated by an attitude of curiosity and a belief in the value of evidence that involves identifying assumptions, posing thoughtful questions, pursuing deeper understandings through reflection and perspective taking. Right? I mean, we talking to folks. We are not presuming anything. We talking to folks. What's going on in your life? What is hurting you and what would heal you? Are we doing that as program offerers? You come to my program every week. Am I doing that for you in the way that you imagine, right? And it informs decisions and preparation for action while radically imagining all Black people dignified and flourishing in the future. Black people are not dignified and flourishing in the present. And we do our work to make sure that it's a promise to Black folks in the future. We're not doing it just to solve, like I said, just not to answer just the question. Did you do the work? Did you feed the people? You probably did feed the people. Did they love it? Did they love it? Did we take one step, 1% closer to changing our world for the better, right? And that is the invitation. So we talk about frameworks. I'll just spend a quick little moment. So this is our evaluation cycle. Essentially, it says that evaluation in time and ideas and liberation work is cyclical. There is no start and an end. There is only where you start the work and where you end the work, right? Sometimes that is a contractual scopes timeline. Sometimes that is how long the funding is. Sometimes where you start and stop is based on other circumstances, but the life keeps living and the needs keep being, met or unmet in that way. And we acknowledge that the evaluation of a thing is only a stint in the life cycle of the problem or in the life cycle of the solution. And essentially, this is AFE is what we call it, Afrofuturist evaluation. This is the framework we use in our approach to evaluation, which allows us to interrupt our thinking with intention when we are doing evaluations. And so in this moment, I pass it to Kato.
So Koren mentioned at the beginning storytelling and how we were going to talk about some methods that we've used in this project specifically. But when you think of storytelling, what comes to mind? If you all could put it in the chat, or who comes to mind? If you can really give us an example of what comes to your head when you think of those. I think all of you use different methods, but for Ubuntu, we've learned that storytelling is so powerful in evaluation because it really brings data to life, and it also shows us information and data that goes beyond numbers. It helps us understand what happened. It helps us understand why it happened, how it happened, and how it matters to the people that it's directly impacting. So some of the answers I see are the storyteller. Okay, so who could that be? Because one of the pieces that we're going to move into in a second is that positionality matters, right? So it's not just about thinking about the story that's being told, but who is telling that story? So when somebody says a storyteller, who is that storyteller? Where is the story coming from? What perspective is being represented in that story? So as evaluators and also the folks that we're working with, our backgrounds, our identities, our assumptions, they all shape what we see, they shape what we value, and how we're also interpreting the stories, how we're understanding the stories. So it's really important to be aware of our positionality. That helps us ensure that we're not actually speaking for communities, but we're actually honoring those voices and that are central to the evaluation process. So in this next slide, I don't know if somebody could read out loud the quote. Koren will call on people.
I can read it.
Thank you, Simone.
You're welcome. Let me use my beautiful voice. I'm sorry. It is important for storytellers to impart their own life and experiences into the telling. They also recognize that listeners will filter the story being told through their own experience and thus adapt the information to make it relevant and specific to their life. When listeners know where the storytelling is coming from and how the story fits into the storyteller's life, it makes the absorption of the knowledge much easier. Research's Ceremony, page 32.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So everybody has a story to tell, obviously, but I'm always so impressed when people talk about the differences between like stories even among siblings. They grew up oftentimes in the same house, they have the same parents, but they have a completely different recollection of maybe a similar account or their experience growing up in that house or with a parent. So everyone has a different story to tell, even if people are coming from the same context.
Thank you. This quote, yeah, I really like this quote because it invites us to really think about the critical role of the listener, right? They recognize that listeners filter the story through their own experience and they adapt information to make it relevant and specific to their own lives. So how do we run the risk of that being harmful if we don't know nothing about those people and we haven't exercised compassion, mindfulness, presence, bravery in certain ways? If we are hearing people, and the only way naturally as humans to hear people is through our own filters, but our filters haven't been cleaned out, right? What we doing? So who gets to be a storyteller, how you listen to those stories, and if they have a platform to even share their story at all of these things influence the solution of an evaluation. So the third ingredient. So the sauciness is getting real saucy. We're at the third ingredient. So storytelling evaluation. We're talking about the storyteller. We're talking about context. We're talking about who gets to tell their own story. We're talking about who gets to be listened to for the stories, right? And we're talking about folks who are closest to the problem, being the solutions, right? Having their own solutions. Storytelling evaluation is a data collection strategy for participants to use their own words and their own experiences to reflect on their participation in a program with an organization, right? Storytelling is alternative to traditional data collection methodologies such as surveys, numbers, Likert scales, things of that nature. Those methods don't always speak to the nuance, the realness, the fullness, the multidimensionality of people, of their stories, of a circumstance, right? Storytelling aims at creating the layers that are always present that sometimes one vantage point just doesn't allow us to see. And so it's an art-based data collection strategy. It is more holistic in analysis and evaluation. The organizations and participants can understand the impact of a program through different perspectives. So again, the example I gave a while ago, like if you're a food pantry or you're offering, then you can say, I fed X amount of families, but then that's a number, that's a stat, that is good. The funder might like that. But when you add some nuance and you then ask the question of like, hey, how many dietary restrictions did you consider? What kinds of people's cultural foods were included when you were distributing those foods? Or did people go home with things that they couldn't eat? Right? And if you haven't asked those questions, you haven't investigated from that particular angle, then you can go back to your funders and say, yes, I solved hunger in this neighborhood. But them people didn't feel seen, respected, protected, heard. And in fact, you gave them food that you would eat, but not that they would eat. Right? And how much better, not to say like, oh, you could, I'm not saying that people's not doing as good as they think they are, but sometimes you're not doing as good as you think you are because you didn't ask, right? Or you didn't know what questions to ask, or their space wasn't provided for the kind of most relevant feedback to be provided, right? I love this TED Talk, but I'm not going to play it. I'm going to put it in the chat and I want y'all to play it later. Essentially, what Chimamanda, this is an author, and she has wonderful books and she's such a powerful speaker. She talks about vantage points and the dangers of a single story, that if I say one thing or you only look through a peephole of somebody's life, you will come to an understanding. Will that understanding be mindful and affirming of that full person? Probably not. And it is a risky venture to only rely on the vantage point through that peephole or from your data through a quantitative quantitative angle. You run the risk of not being able to affirm the full dignity of your audiences if you only come at it from one angle. And so using this strategy allows you to disrupt how people of the global majority are included in evaluation work. And it also opens up opportunity for those with language barriers, with learning disabilities, people who are not able or traditionally invited to participate in traditional surveys. If you're not going to sit at a computer, if you don't have access to a computer, if you don't have the time during the day that the town hall is being hosted, if you are not otherwise traditionally invited or accessible to these places, this is a way that your voice can still be captured. Y'all are saying nice things to me in the chat. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. So boom, let's keep going. I pass it to me. Dang, look, I'm on my facilitation guide. I'm sorry. Thank you. So journey mapping is a storytelling evaluation methodology. And like I said, it's art-based. Storytelling is art-based. And so journey mapping is a research method that allows participants the opportunity to capture the experiences on a journey in a timeline that were significant to them. Right. And so if their application experience was arduous, or they had to go through 17 steps to be able to submit the application, but the pre and post survey doesn't ask about that process, we miss that feedback. Right. And so how can Ubuntu and YWCA create as wide a range, a wider window to get all feedback? This is a brand new program when we started it, right? So it's a 5-year thing, and we started in 2020. I got on it in 2022. No, 2021. I got it on in 2022. And the first year of data, it didn't look good. Those numbers was like only 2 people finished the full requirements of the program. Oops, right? Like, but then only this many people were able to go and do this, and it just, when we were writing these numbers down for our grant requirements and our reporting, it made it seem like we did not do what we said we would do. But being people who served for that entire 8 weeks in that summer, people had gotten hugs, people had got renewed senses in community, people had gotten housing referrals, people had gotten restored their faith in humanity and in friendships, period, right? Like at the age of 40 something, they now have a friend that they hadn't had in a decade, right? We were not able to report what really was good about what was happening in this program. And that is what kind of invited us to do this shift. The peephole didn't say nothing about what was really valuable in this program. And it was hurtful to us to be not able to talk about it. So how do we make ourselves able to talk about it? So I have 3 examples here to the right of the product of what we were able to create through our combination that we're telling you about. So these are journey maps of folks going each week and sharing with us what they learned or what was exciting to them. That is our examples over here. The purpose of journey mapping. So the task is to outline certain set of experiences. What happened for you? Let's say, for example, right now, what happened for you in the year of 2025? Since, January, what was your highs? What was your lows? What was devastating? What was surprising? What was outright exciting? Outline those moments as it relates to your evaluation career or, whatever your side quest or your hobby, right? So that is the task. Here's your timeline. Outline what stood out to you and why, and tell me why. Put pictures in there and let me know. And by the end, the data that we're able to see is the context that led you to a program. We're better able to understand your motivators for the program. We're better able to understand what you loved about the program. If you completely didn't miss something that me as the program planner, I thought this was gonna hit and ain't nobody say nothing about it, it didn't hit that hard, right? It didn't hit, but everybody's speaking about this other moment here, and I thought that was but they loved it. Bring that back. Don't bring back the other one because that's what you wanted to do. The people said, right? And so these are opportunities for them to name what was most impactful or their areas of growth or their motivators in their own voices, so that sometimes when you ask the question, they answered that question, but they might have a different answer to a question that hasn't been asked, right? And so here's another example that I'll pass it to Aurelia to talk to you a little bit more about these specific folks in this program who are still in community with us even after completion of our program.
Thank you, Koren. So specifically with our friends on the screen, one person is named Cortez and another person is named Alizé. And one reason why they are featured as the perspective that we want to talk about for this meeting today is because they were able to go really in depth with their journeys and with what they experienced from coming from the outside and never have taken a program like this, never have taken a program at the YWCA Madison specifically, to now, this is a year and a half later, they're on the last set of our employment training programs. They're in a program called YWeb 2.0, where they are coding, they're doing AI, they're learning Agile and Ruby and other advanced languages like that. So I have a quick story about Cortez specifically. I knew Cortez as a child. So to see him now and work with him now is like a full circle moment. And he speaks a lot about how our building at 2040 South Park Street in Madison, Wisconsin is considered his home. So when we ask what feels like home, where's home for you? For me, home is Madison and Baton Rouge. For other people, it was wherever their mother is, wherever their children are, wherever they feel safe, seen, and supported. And Cortez spoke to how the YWCA building is his home and it feels like home. And he said that it feels like home because he knows that he's going to get loved genuinely. He's going to get a hug. It's going to be people that are genuinely happy to see him, ask him about his day, ask him about his grandkids, ask him about his kids. And all of those things, as far as our evaluation standpoint, is exactly what we need to know, what we know that we're doing right. And we know that we're doing it right because it comes from the horse's mouth specifically. It's coming out of his mouth. And so through this type of journey mapping, we know that participants can provide the full context for how they reach a certain point in their life. And we get to know their backstory and we get to know, kind of how they move through life and what they've seen and what they've experienced. We also get to learn about any unexpected pivots. And then we can identify and assess them because they come from the participant's perspective. And then the participant is able to tell us their story from their point of view, and it's not so rigid and so small to where did we only meet your needs in one way specifically? No, we know that we offer this person a home. We offer this person, Alizé specifically. We're big on community. We're big on if the baby does not have childcare, bring the baby to class. We have toys, we have a TV, we have a Netflix subscription. We will put Coco Melon on in the back and let you be able to come to class. And she spoke how that just felt very family-like. It felt like she could bring her kids to her mama's house or to her sister's house and know that they're going to be fed, they're going to be loved, they're going to be nurtured. And she can still carry on and do what she needs to do to meet the requirements of the program. And that also speaks to why it's so important, because a Likert scale wouldn't be able to ask you if you can bring your child to class, will you still come and will you still feel supported and seen? It allows us to see how many different paths we can really make and support for people to get to their version of success, because we know that success is subjective. And it uplifts each person's path in their own way by telling their story from their perspective, in their wording, in their vernacular, and it enriches the data because it allows the participant to be completely open and reflect however they see fit. And it's imperative, and I've stressed that, it's as honest as you need it to be. Whatever you need me to know, please be open. I will not get offended. My feelings will not be hurt. I make this program with this feedback so that it is beneficial to you. So me knowing that, I can put it back into the program, and it can be exactly what the people need. And so far from their photo voice, we learned that it is what they need, and it is really supportive. And I'm going to now pass it back to Koren.
So I want to be mindful of time, and I know I'm already talking fast, but I'm gonna talk a little faster just so we can like get there. So just track me. I'm answering a couple questions in the chat. So like if you drop it in there, I'm gonna see what you know what I'm saying? So yeah, boom. So photo voice. This is our second storytelling evaluation, right? So we talked about journey mapping and it's more on a timeline. But what is photo voice? Photo voice empowers people from marginalized groups to capture and record their life experiences through photography and storytelling. Think Instagram and TikTok, but in a more organized fashion for data, right? So a community member is intended to take a picture or something or a video of something, but then narrate. You know, we say a photo is worth 1,000 words. All 1,000 of those words will be in the voice of the capturer of that photo. Does that make sense? And so we're taking our opportunity to not put the peephole where we want to put the peephole, but ask that person to say, can I please look through your peephole, and at what angle would you like me to look so that I can learn what, right? And this intentionality about it. And so just for like funnies, these photos to the right, this was our a photo shoot of sorts where we were trying to curate a rumor starting at Ubuntu about us hiring. And so we were like, we took these pictures and they had a message, right? And the message was, it's fun to work here. We love each other. We get things done. Don't you want to get in with us? But to like make it like funny and like low level. But I love these photos and I love my team. So that's like super funny how we leverage this tool in a fun way, but also to deepen our practice and to connect and make it relatable and digestible. Again, we live in a society where a lot of people are functionally illiterate. You know what I'm saying? We're working on that. There are people working on that, but how do we still reach those people? How do we still validate the perspectives and lived experiences of all those people, right? So when we talk about the purpose, what you gonna do? You document, you reflect upon, you communicate personal stories and issues of concern through the photos, through the narration. The data that we get once you do that, it connects how a participant understands themselves in the pictures, in the context, in their political time of day. That person is going to share with us through their narrative how they understand themselves in relation to whatever is being captured. Right. And then we will better understand because the context is still there. Right. How does all of that connect us to the program's outcomes and amplifying or feeding or bridging a gap, or right, like how are we going to use it in that way? The goals of photo voice. Here's another one. I'm gonna put this one in the chat. This one's only 3 minutes and incoming. There she is. In that video, it talks about a successful photo voice project in a community that allowed folks who had survived Ku Klux Klan interactions basically to kind of do some reconciliation amongst their community members, and they did photo voice, and there was a lot of elders who were able to tell stories that were never told in other circumstances, and it was really cool. And they met the goals, which were to empower people to articulate their strengths within community, initiate dialogue between community members and stakeholders, and to solve community problems by influencing community practice. All in the same. We're solving community practices by asking community and using their voice to design the solution, right? We are never coming in and saying, I know what's best. I'm an evaluator and I've read a book about that, right? No, we're going to hurt the people if we do not go and figure out what it is that they see for themselves and generate true buy-in for whatever we're designing. That's the other thing about evaluation. Sometimes we design solutions that aren't sustainable, not because they weren't brilliant solutions, but because there was no buy-in. You didn't ask nobody if they wanted that, right? So this video is a example of that done well in a project in a particular context, right? We don't have to answer this one, but another one, just like talk about my team and like I love working with them. So we are always together. These represent our team really well. The chess player, right? We're strategic planners, right? You have to think a couple steps ahead when you're outlining a 5-year strategic plan, or when you're building out certain documents that come about from evaluation. You have to be able to see the board in different kinds of moving parts. But if we do it in a way that allows us to better understand what those parts that move are and which direction they move in, then we're better able to do them with mercy, with grace, with kindness, and with true positive impact. We also love each other, and that's demonstrated as well. And if you can't see, like it says, behind every picture tells a story. We're storytelling it. And of course, I was like, y'all, get ready for this picture. I got a timer set up to like capture it. So love that. How is this relevant in the world? So we've talked about our program. We've talked about who gets invited into it. We've talked about how mindful and how important it is for us to approach this work with intention. And what is the course? Aurelia tells us a little bit. So it's a 6 to 8 week program. It's been 6 weeks and it's been 8 weeks. And it is a stipended program where folks who are recently formerly incarcerated are learning computer skills so that they can become more eligible for high paying work as we adjust in a technologically advancing world, as well as heal some of the community based things through restorative justice, conflict resolution, and these other soft skills that they come and get training and conditionings and practice in that way. And so you show up and basically we're going to pay you to show up and get better. We're going to pay you to show up and show us your heart. We're going to pay you to show up and build community that you might not have in any other opportunities. That is the base of the program. How do you measure something like that? How do you measure what's good about something that is so nuanced, so flexible, with such a vulnerable community, with such a marginalized community, an underserved and ostracized community, right? How do you measure that if we did it, right? So when we filled out our grant, we measured it in system change, in health, and in well-being. So we were talking about, maybe we'll do some surveys and figure out, did you learn, right? Did you learn how to use the computer? Are you more confident at how to use the computer, right? How many people graduated? How many people, are there from start to end? How many people become employed after? We are longer term just starting to observe how many people fall prey to recidivism compared to how many people don't, right? As a result of them leveraging their new skill sets. There's resume writing. There's mock interviews. There's all of these other things that are designed to eliminate the barriers to reintegration in this program. But it also is hard work. We doing restorative justice circles and figuring out, how do we agree to disagree without fighting? How do we ask for what we need without, you know what I'm saying, assuming somebody automatically isn't going to help us? How do we heal and mend some of our trauma and our limiting beliefs that are preventing us from being brave enough to try different outcomes to produce different results in our lives, right? So again, our first year of the program, the surveys and the numbers, we didn't like it. It did not humanize the program. It did not speak to what we were doing. And it actually quite literally felt disrespectful. It was rough. So we had innovated a mixture of our journey maps and our photo voices. And so we were like, okay, we got to figure it out. How are we going to have these folks doing surveys and filling out, queries and prompts when they're coming here to learn the computer? How are we going to put the barrier that they come here to solve as the data collection material, right? How is that? So we figured out, we use Padlet as a platform, and we integrated using Padlet and doing your exit vlog, which is a combination of photo voice and photo voice and journey mapping. It is now built into the curriculum of the basic tech skills course of using the platform to record their responses. And so the journey mapping is because it's over the course of the program, but the photo voice is because they're recording themselves answering the questions. On the screen, you'll see some of the things that we were just kind of able to learn. So the environment, there lots of peer learning was taking place, right? This is an intergenerational program. So it would be elders who are struggling with computer stuff, or who had been, put away for so long that, life went on without them in some ways, and they weren't able to catch up as far as phone usage or emails or files and documents. But then it would be young people who were better at computers but still needed the skills to find employment, and these people were collaborating together in class to meet each other just because I love you, right? That is not going to show up in a sub or in a survey, right? And so we dignify students by addressing housing needs, transportation barriers, childcare, again, creating an environment where peer learning is taking place. The step-by-step and being immersed in an environment is completely different than like a little hour module and, YouTube University, and we can learn everything at home. That's not true for everybody. And that's not true, for certain people. We're wired to learn a little differently, right? Again, I know I'm talking fast. Put your questions in the chat. I'm just I don't want y'all to miss nothing. So bear with me. So how did we do it and how did we curate these questions? So the questions to the right is an older version. They've been adapted since. It's an older version, but we wanted to identify questions that asked about content-based learning, but then personal enrichment, but then professional development, but then also what brings you joy? Why do you continue to show up? Right? And we want to know all these things because it's not only about, here, I checked the box, I taught them. We did that for 4 hours. They should have it, right? Do they have it though? And can they teach it back to you? Or have they said, and a lot of our program participants have said, I'm gonna go home and teach this to my kids. I'm gonna go home and teach this to my neighbor. I'm gonna go home and talk about this. Or, when we talk about the restorative justice, I've done something similar, but I didn't know it like this. And this is how I'm finna start doing at home. To resolve conflict with my siblings. This is how I'm going to start addressing conflict with these other community members that I'm in. And so it's been really beautiful. I'm not even going to send y'all the link of this one, but this is a little tutorial video of me teaching them how to use Padlet. It's kind of cringy, but don't mind me. So this is how I taught the lesson as far as getting them to do the actual work itself. And I'll pass it back to one of my partners to tell us how it's been successful, how it has continued to be relevant within the YWCA, and how it actually has multiplied in value into its other programs.
Thank you, Koren. So how has this program been successful? From the voice of the people that we have actually worked with, it's been successful because, I have a quick story. There was a man who was incarcerated. He said, he was completely innocent for 40 years. He was in prison. And he said that one night it was like 8 p.m. and it dawned on him, I can go outside. He walked to the Walgreens and got him like a little strawberry shortcake ice cream bar. And he ate his ice cream and walked home and watched the moon. And like, we know it's successful because he said like before this class, he never felt safe to even try to go outside, even though he was free, even though he had served his time and he was released. So we know that it's successful because the people come back and tell us. We know that it's successful because the people that have gone through the program reach out to us and let us know their wins. They come back. This is a community center, and we try to promote that while they are specifically in this class. And so we tell them, when you have a day, when you have a win, when you have a loss, you can always stop by, knock on my door. If I'm not in a meeting, we can talk, we can chat, we can catch up. So we know they're successful because we've been able to build rapport with these people in and out of class times. There are people that come back and join the restorative justice circles for a cohort that they aren't a part of, just because they know that it's love, and then they know that it's safe, and they know that they can be themselves here. People are still in community. People are still friends. Like, I can hear about, I'm going to see so and so. We're going to the bar. We're gonna have a drink. Or our other friend got the kids, so us two are gonna go do this, and then next weekend I'll get the kids, and those two are going. So like, these people are creating lifelong bases of community that are outside of family, or chosen family actually. We know that this is successful because we literally do not see these people going back into the system. We see these people striving for education, striving for, other pursuits that they consider to be a part of their success story, that keeps them out of the prison, that keeps them out of the jail. And that's exactly what we want. That's the whole reason why we have this program, right? So we can speak to success because the people have told us their success, and told us why it's important, and told us why they really appreciate this program.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass it back to Koren.
That was all. I got it all before the hour. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for engaging. I did have one question in the chat that I saw already. If there are more, I want to, try to, as best I can. But so someone asked about the challenges. Can you talk about the challenges you've encountered using journey mapping and storytelling, and how you work past those challenges? Whew, great question. So I think the first challenge is buy-in. Do they want to do it, right? I think that this is a really atypical way to collect data, and surveys sometimes can feel better. I can click 1 through 5. I got that, right? Like, and sometimes, but it's like, oh wait, you want me to be vulnerable? You want me to be honest? You want me to get in the corner? You want me to just like speak from my heart? I think there's a little bit of reservation when it comes there. There was also a challenge as far as, again, like I said, these folks are coming to learn how to do the computer, and I'm asking you to record a submission every week on a platform to give me the data. So there were barriers as far as actually learning the platform and getting them technologically able to do the submissions. But I find that once they got through that part, everybody was actually eager to do it. Everybody, really enjoyed doing it. So it was more about just like making it make sense. Why are we doing this? Why are you in my business? And why is this the way that you want to get the data? I never seen nobody do it that way. And kind of just having those conversations, again, just generating buy-in and honoring those questions and those queries. Yeah. So not too many challenges. And then also doing my little tutorial videos, teaching. So I'm in Milwaukee, they're in Madison. So that's another thing. It would be easier if I could just like pull up and talk to people, but that's not how, that's just not how it was set up. And so that's a barrier, is like teaching it from over here. How did your funders react to this change in evaluation, especially assuming they thought they were funding a program that would have specific outcomes like participants gaining employment? So the funders of this program, so it's a grant, and they already, I forgot what WPP stands for, but that's kind of the grant in there. And so the requirements, we still are doing the reporting in the traditional fashion. We're still writing a report at the end. So when they submit the video, we transcribe it, we pull out the quotes, we theme them, we group them, right? Just how traditional qualitative data is analyzed, and then it just goes back into the report in the same way. So we didn't, the funder, to my knowledge, let me know, Aurelia, but they don't have any complaints in that way, because we are still answering their questions in a robust fashion. We aren't like sending them a link to one person's Padlet. We still crunch up that data and convert it into a reportable deliverable in that way. This was wonderfully informative and heartfelt presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, Samantha, back to you, Sam.
You did it. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for your presentation. It was fantastic hearing from you three. I think people probably feel really energized after this, which is like the most you can hope for. I did go ahead and put the links in the chat again. I hope you'll join us in 2 weeks when we have our next Eval Cafe. Andrea Allen, who I saw is here at today's presentation, she'll be joining us with Kenlana Ferguson, and their presentation is titled Trust-Based Philanthropy, Learning, and Evaluation. So hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll have that recording online in the next couple of days. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you for the opportunity, Samantha. Appreciate it.